I'm Rene Ritchie.
And I'm Georgia Dow.
And welcome to our brand new podcast where we discuss Apple and related companies, technologies, and how they impact our life and our culture, which they are increasingly doing these days. Georgia, for people who haven't seen us podcast in a while, because it's been a minute, can you remind them what you do?
So I used to work for iMore dealing with technology. I do a whole bunch of technology podcasts, and I'm also a psychotherapist. So that's usually my day job.
And I used to be in product marketing, and then I worked for a while at Mobile Nations. I was editorial director for iMore, Android Central, Windows Central. And recently, before all of 2020 happened, I quit my big media job and went indie with my new YouTube channel. So what's our first topic for today, Georgia?
So I saw that you dealt with the Apple leaks and all of the things with
I
that.
tier listed them.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you because I know you used to do this and be part of this. So I wanted to get a little bit of your feelings and thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I did it a long time ago. It was like back in the 2011, 2012 era. And it feels like a different lifetime. But yeah, I found out about the September iPhone event in July. I published that Apple was switching from the dock connector to the Lightning connector, which was big news back then. That Apple was making an iPad mini, even after Steve Jobs said that nobody wanted a tablet that small because they'd have to shave down their fingers to use it.
Right.
And I published all those, I did everything that you normally do, like all the journalistic things. I checked them. I managed to get 3 sources on them, but it's a real trip. It's a double-edged sword. So just if I can explain the mentality at first, is that cool?
Yeah. Tell us, what is it like to go through that? What happens to you when you leak something and you get all that adoration or revilement?
See, I don't know if it's adoration. Yeah. So, but back then it was much nicer. I remember now people argue and bicker and they seem not to like each other very much. But back then, John Gruber had his little birdies. John Pachowski, I think he was with the Wall Street Journal still, and he got a lot of information about the early Apple events. Mark Gurman was at 9 to 5 Mac. He was like the boy genius, the prodigy, getting all the information early on. And I think actually he and I got the iPad mini and Apple Maps at the same time. And I just wrote up the iPad mini first and he wrote up Maps first. And we were texting each other going, oh, yeah. Oh, but it wasn't it was a rivalry. Everybody wanted to be first. Everyone wanted to score the breaking news. But it also felt like it was respectful. But the psychology was really interesting because you do start to get people really interested in you. I got newspaper articles written about me. And I was like newspaper articles. I'm not talking about now. It's national paper newspaper articles.
And okay, so what is that like for you? So you here you are, you're doing all of your blogging, and then you hit something and it hits big and everyone's talking about it. Everyone's talking about you. What happens to you when you go through that?
It's a weird thing. I ended up not liking it, but I can understand why other people did. I just felt immense pressure and stress and anxiety. First, to make sure I didn't get it wrong, because I never wanted to be wrong.
Because it's you on the line,
yeah,
right?
Well, it's your reputation. Because the audience doesn't care. They'll go from leaker to leaker. Whoever gets it first is who they care about. And I can get more into that later because that changed everything for me when I finally realized that. But just the idea of getting it wrong, I would worry about putting it up, but also you have the pressure of if I wait too long, someone else might get it because everyone's on the hunt for all this information. So
there's a push and a pull, right? You want to get it out really quickly because if someone else gets it out and it is right, you're going to be really upset with yourself. You're going to go through that.
Because then they get all the attention.
Right, exactly. But then if you put it out too soon and you haven't fact-checked enough, then you have that. So it was very stressful.
Yeah. But again, people were more more classier back then.
Right.
Because I said, I gave out the information on the iPhone event in July, coming up in September. And a few weeks later, John Pachowski found out that there were 2 separate events, an iPhone and an iPad event. And he's just he just messaged me and goes, look, I'm publishing the story. I don't mean to doubt your credibility. This is the best information I have. And I'm like, yeah, no, man, the best information wins.
That's
you go.
That's so sweet, though.
Yeah.
That's so thoughtful.
It wasn't oh, trash Rene wrote the, I mean, it's so, but the whole internet is different. We can get into that later.
Yeah, true.
But then you get this attention and it's a little bit addictive and you start to want it more, but getting information, getting good, reliable information is hard. So you have this inner conflict of, oh, I got this. I need something else. The attention is fading. It's colder outside. I need to be
People
hot
are
again.
Forgetting about me.
Or or someone else got a story and you're like, ah. And then you're like start trying to justify or rationalize taking bigger risks. Like this story is not as solid. I only have 2 confirmations, or I only have 1 confirmation, and you start taking more risks. And maybe the rewards are good, but usually the rewards aren't even as good anymore. But you're desperate to keep that spotlight. And I didn't like any of those feelings. I didn't like the anxiety. Like the night before, like when I published, the night before I published, when I published, to see if anybody would contradict me after I published.
Right. Or hate on you.
I did not like the pressure of like what's next, because it's always what's next. And again, nobody cares about the leaker. They only care about, well, I shouldn't say leaker. Nobody cares about the reporter. They only care about the report. And if I don't have it and Gurman does, that's all they care about. They'll read Gurman. There's no loyalty at all. Like now there's sort of like a tribalism where there's like, Team Jern and Team Gurm, which is hilarious to me. But really, they only care about the information. And when I realized that I was not creating my own value. I was only as good as my sources.
And only as good as your last story.
Yeah.
Can I go through a little bit of the psychology of what happens inside the brain while we go through that? So you end up getting this. So one is we're made to want affirmation for others. That's kind of what humans like. We want to be cared about. We want to be liked. We want to be noticed. We want to bring value to the world, and we're hardwired that way. So every time you do something that gets a lot of affirmation from others or attention, because remember, we'll take good attention first, then we'll take negative attention next, right? So this is really important for parenting. And then we'll take no attention next. Like that's the worst thing out of everything, is to kind of be forgotten. So you end up going through this like high, this dopamine, which is what happens in the brain when you get that affirmation. You get a shot of dopamine, which makes us feel happy and motivated. So you want to do it more. And
it's
then,
like the mouse getting the sugar reward, right?
100% what it is. It's an addictive kind of feeling. It's awesome. You're on top of the world and it feels amazing. But then after you've done that, people start to wane and you start going through that drop. And when
you do the A movies, then you start doing the B movies, and then the straight to video.
And then what happened, right? Now it's all done. So you're riding this high and then it's dropping and you want that next shot so that you can go and get the next high. So you end up with this drive factor, and it's running our addiction center at the same time. So I see that feeling
everyone's
of wanting...
linking to me, everyone's tweeting about me, everyone's talking about me.
I'm the it person for those few minutes.
And it's not even me, because like I'm just a conduit. Like there are people, and if you want, we can talk about why I think people leak.
Yeah.
But like I'm just a conduit. I just got this information. It could have been somebody else, and maybe I tell the story well. Most often, I think in big journalism, like big media publications, the editorial process is so strange it destroys the real narrative, and all you get is a few data points. But I was lucky that I had a pretty good amount of autonomy, so I could tell the story I wanted to tell. But still, it wasn't my story.
Right.
And sometimes you're dealing with people who have their own agendas. Like inside Apple, they have very small teams, and they have a program manager. They have like code managers too, but they have program managers. And oftentimes they'll be like, all right, everybody try to make a keyboard, and we'll have a keyboard derby and the best keyboard wins. Or everybody try to solve this problem and we'll pick one solution. And the people whose keyboard or solution don't get picked, they can be pissed. And some of the ways they act out is to go to like reporters and leak about the situation to try to like slam their boss or to make their boss look bad. Right. And you can always tell those because they usually name drop. Like if you see a rumor story that says, Siri's not getting this feature because this program manager was against it, or Apple chose, or Johnny Ive torpedoed the VR contraption because it wasn't like all of those are typically like grudge reports.
Right.
And I don't want to be somebody else's agenda.
Right.
And I think the other one is there are people who are just super fans. And they're so excited about what they're making. Like, I've made this new doodad and I'm not supposed to talk about it. My team would kill me if I talked about it. I would be sued by my company for breaking my NDA if I talked about it. But I'm so excited. Like, the best way not to spill a secret is not to tell anyone. Like, don't tell anyone. But also, humans are natural storytellers.
And they can't tell, like, having something so exciting that you care about so deeply and you can't tell anyone, that's difficult because we want to share the joy, and we want to do it in a way that we don't have anything bad happen to us. And we might have this leaker that this reporter that we really like, and we would want to share, and we think that we can get both. We can keep our anonymity and get that joy of, I was a part of this.
But just like, I think there's a deeply intrinsic human thing that nothing real, no experience is real until it's shared. It's why we tell stories and why we evolved from from handing down stories to writing down stories to seeing movies. Like, we're just innate storytellers, and that's attention.
It leaves our little mark on the world,
Yeah.
and all of us want to leave a piece of the world behind, something to be remembered about, something that will last beyond ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so this
and
is a
there's
little
attention
piece
there.
of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And even if like they're not like, I don't know how anonymous they are to the reporter. Usually not. Like, usually you know who you're talking to.
Right.
But when the report comes out, you know that you did that. Like, you're not named. The reporter gets all the credit. They get all the limelight, all the spotlight. But you have this little feeling inside that I did this. You know,
Right.
I shared this. Hee.
Yeah.
And also, I think there is like this person, like this famous YouTuber or this famous reporter, or this famous blogger. They wouldn't give me the time of day if I didn't have, in the normal course of things. At least they don't feel that way. Like, in my experience, almost everyone is really nice if you reach out to them on Twitter or something, but they want like a deeper connection, and they don't know how to get it, but they have information that's valuable to that person. And if they can offer that information, they get a conversation going. I think it works that way too, like whether it's political leaks, whether it's like someone familiar with it, or senior staff, or like movies being leaked, like the new Star Wars or Avengers movie. I think all of that is the same. But again, I worry about people like losing their jobs over that.
Right.
I mean, like, famously, Gurman leaked something that got people fired, and there was a memo about them being fired, and he leaked the memo.
Yeah, and that must be really
Hard.
Leaks
That must be
leaks are
hard.
so usually they're like fun, and we're excited, and we want to know about our products, and so we're part of this process because I read the latest story about what's going to be coming out, and we don't think that there's going to be really this cost, or that someone's going to have something bad happen to them. But yeah, that is another piece to it, is that there's actually people's jobs that are on the line with doing this, and they do get fired. Like, you're signing an NDA that you're not supposed to be able to send this out to anyone.
And we saw that again this week, where John Prosser had videos out about your beloved AirTags.
Yeah.
And the
I did watch it.
The AirPods Studio, which are the over-the-ear AirPods, and he was working to make renders so that the original images and video wouldn't be seen by anybody and wouldn't be traced back. But then someone he gave it to, or someone who he gave it to somebody else, and someone just tweeted out the images. And it's disputed, but one person said that all 6 of those people were fired. The 6 people who had access to that particular version of the hardware were all fired. And again, that's disputed. Someone else said that didn't happen. But still, they're grown-ass adults, and they're breaking their NDA, and they're leaking it. But to me, like, this isn't leaks. This is spoilers. Like, if someone's leaking toxic waste being dumped, or NSA surveilling outside the law, like if someone's a whistleblower, that is life and death. Like, that is, you are doing the classic job of journalism. You are a hero. You're a goddamn hero for doing that kind of stuff. I was talking about when the iPhone was coming out and whether Apple was going to make a small iPad, and especially as more people we worked with at iMore went to work at Apple, I never ever wanted anyone to even think for a minute that I was talking to them about Apple stuff. Like, I wouldn't want to put them at risk either. So it wasn't worth it to me.
Yeah, so the costs were more than what got through it, though. I understand both sides, right? Like, it's a difficult thing when you want that attention, and that's your business.
Yeah.
Yet people's jobs are on the line, and sometimes,
And maybe you could explain this to me, the other side of this, because there is a thirst. Like, I look at people on Twitter, like people like Mark Gurman and John Prosser, and anytime they tweet anything, it could be about basketball, it's like, is there going to be 120 hertz? When's the new iPhone coming? It's like they are assaulted by people demanding information from them. And then you have some people saying, you're always wrong, some people saying, you're always wrong. But we want that. It's like, and you and I have this argument all the time because I like spoilers. I find spoilers reduce my anxiety.
Right.
I'm nervous going in, and you will like cut pages out of the back of books so that I don't get to know what happens in the end.
I have done that. You bought the book again, though, so
Yes.
you cheated, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's all they're calling. But so why do we, does it de-stress it for us? Why do we want to know? Does it help us plan for the future? Are we worried we're not going to get, why do we want the leaks?
I think that it's like finding out what your presents are going to be. You want to know what's going to be the next thing happening. And we're so excited about our technology, especially when times are really tough and dark. We want that little bit of what's going to be the next thing that I get to enjoy. Interestingly enough, for movies, I don't want to know.
No,
I don't
you don't.
watch the previews. I'll be like the person I'll actually like close my eyes and I'll hum when I'm watching a movie to see the next, because let's just say it, the previews show the entire rest of the movie anyways, and all of the funny
because
scenes.
you have a Batman brain. Like you can piece together this person there. I now know when this is happening.
Yeah, for visual stuff, I'll remember all of it, and then I'll know like they're wearing another outfit, so I know they don't die yet because they're wearing another outfit. In
I'm like,
scene.
cool outfit. Oh, look, explosion.
Right. But for actually technology, I don't have that. It's not ruining the story for me.
Okay.
It's giving me the gift. What am I going to get a little bit early? And when am I going to get it? And I get this feeling of joy and excitement to be able to see what's going to happen next. What is my life going to be like? And that want for what will be the future like causes me just happiness. So I follow all of the newest leaks. I want to know all of the possibilities, even if I know that for most of the cases they're not going to happen. But I think also that knowing about the future I find very exciting. How is our future going to be like? What is that going to be? And I think
but then you don't find the events, because a lot of people say that, like they follow the leaks and then the event happens, they go, oh, boring, there were no surprises. I'm like, but you read all the leaks. It's like reading the story to Avengers Endgame and saying it didn't surprise you. You read the story.
Yeah, but then if I get what I was hoping for, I'm still kind of excited about it. And I don't know, like you can message us and let us know, like, what do you feel about leaks? Do you hate this? Do you think it ruins the event and you try to avoid them? Stay off the internet for a period of time like I do before, like when I haven't seen the movie yet, right? I haven't seen the movie yet. I don't want to know what happens for it. Or do you think that this is something that's wonderful and good and adds to your, sphere of technology?
The thing at the end, I didn't know what to do, and I spoke to Jim Dalrymple, and he's always been a very good mentor for me. Jim has been in this business forever. Mac Central, Macworld. He was there live blog in the first iPod, and he'll be there live blog in the last iPhone. He's an institution. And I asked him, and he said, Rene, you're going to take the information, and people depend on you to say whether it's true or false, whether it's believable or not believable, whether it sounds plausible or not plausible. And he was famous for saying, like, yep to correct rumors and nope to bad rumors.
Right.
And he said, like, just go through them and help people make sense of them. And I think that's what I'm doing now. And I think it's even more important than ever, because we live in a time where truth doesn't matter as much. Misinformation is considered equal and opposite to information. Like, you have to be fair and equal with your misinformation and information. And we have just anonymous Twitter accounts popping up, Reddit threads coming up with like tons of information that's really misinformation. And I think if I can help people sort out, like, I don't have to break news. I don't have to publish leak reports, rumor reports. I can sort through and say, well, given everything that's going on in the industry, this sounds believable. And no, this is just a bunch of BS. Don't even waste your time. Ignore them.
It seems like you get like a little bit of the midpoint, and that works for you.
Yeah, and it's hugely reduced my stress load, which I need, because every bit of Apple rumor stress I've lost, I now have social media stress for.
Social media stress.
Can I tell you why?
Tell me why, Rene.
Because I'm going to go off on a little tangent, but I promise I'm coming back. Just as a people, we had this agrarian society where we all lived in villages and more or less took care of ourselves. We had our tribes, and then the Industrial Revolution happened, and we moved to the cities, and we moved to high-rises or out to the suburbs, and we left behind our villages. But then the internet came, and we could find people with similar interests. You never knew what village you'd be in. You sort of adopted the interests of your village. But we could make our own. Like, I love painting Games Workshop figures, or I love Marvel comic books, or I love Apple stuff. You could find all these like-minded people, and on Twitter, on Facebook, back then on Friendster and MySpace, sure, and just like go. But now TikTok. But we're seeing social media just under assault by external and internal forces. The U.S. government wants to ban TikTok, and now they want to do, I think, sell it to Walmart and Oracle. And at the same time, Facebook is acting in ways that I think are just abhorrent and detrimental to the future of humanity. And I don't know if I can keep using Instagram or my Oculus Quest anymore, Georgia. And I'm so frustrated by all this.
So let's start off with, why do we do that, right?
Okay.
We're a social group of people, and we we have evolved. So the things that have evolved to keep us safe has been to group up with people. A solo human, we are relatively not threatening, right? Like we don't have dangerous teeth. We actually smile to other people to say that we are so not dangerous. Don't do that to an animal. That actually shows aggression.
Fangs.
We don't have claws. We have nothing. Yep. As a solo human, we're relatively non-threatening. But as a group, we're very, very powerful. And because of that, we've had this need to have, to be, have a people that we're accountable to be part of a club, to be joined by that. And so we form these little tiny tribes of other people that are like us.
Yeah.
And it can be from the big, like we live in a certain area, and so we're Canadians, or we're Americans, or we're from Brazil, and we end up with that as our affiliation. Or it can get as small.
That's the Olympics.
Yes, the Olympics. Or it can get as small to what phone do you use? And people we become us.
Yes.
The group becomes us, and then there's the them,
yes,
which is your other groups.
Coke and Pepsi, Marvel and DC, Nintendo and Atari.
And we used to need that.
Sorry, Xbox and PlayStation. I apologize.
Both work. And we needed that to survive. And so we needed that affirmation. And most people, like 99.9%, want to be a part of a tribe in a group. And if we're not, we actually go through a feeling of depression and sadness. And so when we are with other like-minded people, we feel like we belong, we're caring, this matters. And we used to live in actual family groups for most of our existence. Then yes, the Industrial Revolution, we lived in these small family units, but we would still go to similar churches or cookouts or helping build things. And now we have this secular kind of world where we are all in a small home. But then we ended up with games that you could play a game and kind of get that feeling of, I'm in this game. And even in that game, you form guilds or tribes, or we're all a certain, race, or we have a certain job that we do.
Or for me, it was like CompuServe, and then Usenet, and then forums, like the Mobile Nations forums, and then Twitter. And then
even what martial art that you do. We've gone through that battle of this is martial art is better than that martial art.
Hoist Gracie, Salt, all that.
We do this us and them with everything. And now social media and gaming has kind of taken over that. That is now our tribe, our group, which comes with all of the good of that, but also now an increasing negativity with being part of that tribe. And then with TikTok, Rene, and TikTok leaving, because TikTok is huge, right? 100 million.
Well, it was such a feat. Like they nailed, like social networks have some form of network effect where people did leave Friendster and they left MySpace and they went to Facebook and they went to Twitter because it better served their needs. And TikTok has just been amazing at using that algorithm to both give you things you want to watch, so it's a great attention trap, but so many people found massive followings so quickly. Like on Twitter, maybe you'd get 2 or 3 followers. On TikTok, people getting thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers.
But I think that TikTok also grabbed a group that had not already been grabbed, right? So Facebook now has an older generation,
your parents.
Right? Yeah. Yet TikTok really grabbed Snapchat, and then really TikTok now has grabbed that youth movement, which
K-pop stands.
Yes, which again, it's the young generation. It's the generation that's coming up, but they're also really media savvy. And they're enjoying and spending a lot of their time because usually they don't really have work and other things that they have to do. So they can also spend a ton of time on TikTok. So their amount of time that they spend using social media has also gone up.
Yeah. And also, it seems to me that the stress coming from the TikTok ban, it's because it hits our innate sense of BS. Like, the government is saying TikTok is bad because it's owned by ByteDance, which is a Chinese company.
Right.
And there are absolutely security concerns, like what's happening with the data. They say they're not taking, our data, but it's hard to tell, and they can still see who your friends are, like all the metadata, all the social graph, who you're interacting with, where you're doing it, all of this stuff. But also the algorithm is so good. And we've seen Facebook do things like try to make us sad, like manipulate our emotions with algorithms. And the concern here is that TikTok could start feeding us pro-Chinese, anti-Hong Kong propaganda or pro-Chinese, anti-American propaganda, which we've seen happen on the internet before for recruiting for terrorist groups and things like that. But I think what strikes us as unfair is that everything TikTok is being accused of, and again, totally sensitive to that, China has a great firewall. They do not let American social networks in. So some people believe we shouldn't let Chinese social networks in. Whatever. Everything TikTok is being warned about Facebook is actually doing.
Not just doing, has been caught
Yes.
doing. There's a paper trail. We have read the tea.
Yes.
The receipts are there.
Yes.
We know that they've done it. They've
Hand
admitted.
cookie jar, caught.
Yes. And so they've done that to great effect.
They've
of
sold
trying
our
to-
data to Cambridge Analytica.
Yes.
They've, like we said, they experimented on us.
They've actually looked at what of our feelings and emotions are and how tried to manipulate how people feel by giving us different information and stories, negative, sad,
Yeah.
happy, and then what happens to us.
Yeah.
So they've actually done this, and yet nothing really important has
Yeah.
happened to Facebook, right? Like they've gotten some fines,
Like,
but let's be
shucks.
honest,
Yeah.
Rene, are fines going to make any difference? Like they're a penny in their jar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's not going to change anything. Yet they're completely shutting down TikTok.
Well, that's it. It's like they're not going after the problem. Like the problem is not a specific tobacco company. The problem is big tobacco.
Right.
And it's not like the government is making rules about how our data, like things like GDPR in the EU, with how data has to be handled, or making data patriation rules where it says like if you're dealing with US customers, the data has to be in the US.
Right.
Because there's a whole bunch of Chinese companies. They're targeting like Huawei on one end and TikTok on the other. And they're not making rules that Facebook has to follow too.
Right.
And I think that hits our innate sense of unfairness.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll ask two questions. I'll ask
Yeah.
of you, and I'll ask of you, Renee.
Okay. I'm your proxy. I got
Yeah,
this for us.
if you disagree,
Yeah,
you can let him
if
know.
I'm wrong.
If he's wrong. He can be wrong every now and then.
Always.
Okay, so what do you think that they can do, though, about just for our privacy? Let's not even talk about yet what happens when you get rid of a tribe for people and what could occur. But what could we or they do about things like Facebook and our privacy and keeping us protected? Like the iPhone, the update for 14 kind of gives us some extra knowledge that they're using our privacy, which is nice. But what can we do and what can governments and people do?
So, like, to be honest, and I don't know if this is the answer you were hoping for, but, and this is what I'm really grappling with, is I think it is absolutely deleterious to us as a civilization to have these companies not regulated. That it's the same as big tobacco, it's the same as pharmaceuticals, because it created the whole purpose of their existence is to get and maintain attention, and the best way to do that is with increasingly extremist and sensationalist media. And they have proven that they can't self-regulate. Like tragedy after tragedy, they don't intervene until afterwards to say, oh, we made a mistake, we'll do better next time. And they are never better next time.
Right.
Like just observably, they're not better. So I really believe that we need to two things. I think people need to stop watching cable news and reading social media feeds. And this is where I get so trapped because I'm not living up to my own example. Like I got rid of my Facebook stuff,
right.
And it was hard because when I worked at Mobile Nations, I had all their pages. You know,
right.
it was literally my job. But I don't use Facebook now. But I'm stuck on Instagram, and I love my Oculus Quest. And they've just said that they're getting rid of the Oculus login, and you're going to have to use a Facebook login. And that means Facebook is literally has a screen on my face. I can't throw an app away. I can't close a tab on a web screen. They're on my face like aliens, like a face hugger from Aliens. And they're sucking in all the 3D data, sound and imaging in my house.
Right.
And I want to quit that, but I can't quit I can't say I can't. I have not wanted to quit Instagram, even though Facebook owns them. And I like my Oculus Quest.
Yes. And for some people, this is the way that they make business.
Or they exercise during this pandemic.
Right. And so these are the way that we reach out to the world. And so they're saying that the only way to deal with it is by not reaching out to the world, your people, your tribe, and you're going to have to get rid of that in order to keep your information safe, right?
Yeah.
And in most other cases, if we treated our data like we treated actual physical objects, these would be crimes. Prosecutable, you could go to jail. Crimes. If
there's a paper trail, if we can show, like we have, that you knew you didn't do something, you stealing my data virtually should be the same as you stealing my property in real life.
Let's say it, my phone knows more about me than I know about me. Like, it would be better for you to torture my phone than it would be. You'd get better information torturing my phone than torturing me, because I'd just make up something.
Stalling Candy Crush right now.
And I don't know what I had for breakfast or where I was at this point, yet my phone has completely accurate data of everything that I did. And we don't really know what data is being sold or even to whom.
And just like things like like we saw even recently, they did not intervene when people said they were going to go out and harm other people.
Yeah.
The moderators refused to stop it and people got killed.
Yeah.
And that to me is a reckless disregard for human life. And people say like, oh, Google and Facebook, they don't sell your data. It's far too valuable to them. And that's true. It's worth they spend billions of dollars to get our data. But again, we've proven that they sell it. Cambridge Analytica was them selling our data.
Yeah.
And unless I think that the actual, like if the CEO knew about it and the CEO is liable for felony charges, just like they would be with real world situations that this was identical to, I don't think they're going to change. And that puts the onus back on me. As much as I love Instagram, like Instagram is probably my favorite social network because it's pictures and people are basically being decent to each other.
Yeah.
Very different than Twitter.
Yeah.
And Oculus, which I've been using during all of this. And I feel so that's my thing, Jordan. Do I stop using Instagram? Do I stop using Oculus?
You know what? I don't even have a great answer because my usual answer for Facebook is just don't do it, right?
Done.
Don't do it. Don't deal with it. But this is also your points of joy and where you feel like it. And I think
village.
that I'll be honest, I think that it's a really unfair thing that I can't keep my village because they can't do a good job of making sure that I stay safe. And I do believe that this should be prosecutable crimes that we need to have. And this is probably really controversial, so you can let me know that, and I get you don't want your government in your business or your social media or in your tribe policing it because how do you trust them as well? But I think that it's not fair to ask people to have to stop all of these things. And yet if they did so we can't police ourselves. No group, it will always have the onus to protect itself first over making sure it does the right thing. And we've seen that in every single area in, companies that, deal with it. H&R is actually about protecting the company, not really protecting the people. Go ahead, come at me for that one. But I'm still going to stand by that that's true. The same thing with the police, the same thing with governments. The first thing is self-protection. And that's fair. I actually think that that's a fair set that, if you're in a family or in a group or in a tribe, your job is to protect the tribe.
Well, and there's a counter argument too. Like some people say you can't see these things that, like I know a lot of people believe that social networks are biased towards one group or another, but like this is not an area where you need feelings. There are facts. You can look and see the most popular shared articles on Facebook any given day, the top 10, and they're almost always the worst cable news, talk radio, meme, disinformation, conspiracy theory, feelings over fact. It's like, I don't want to say virus because we're actually going through a pandemic, but it's like a contagion.
Yes.
It's like poison ideas that are breaking our civilization at a very fundamental level.
And the reason for that is that when you're in your tribe, when you're in your group, you want to be the strongest person in that group. So what happens when we become, because it used to be that we were kind of forced to see divergent ideas. Yeah. We were in groups of people, we were kind of stuck with them. We had to interrelate. If you were part of any club, you had different people of different values and you had to discuss with them. And so that skill of being able to discuss things was good. And I think that we need to have conversations, even if they're different, even if you don't agree with it. I think that shutting other people out and not hearing it is more damaging for us as a culture than being able to listen to things, even if it's painful, hurtful, or disagreement. Different for spreading hate and violence. I think that should be, we have in
Don't
Canada.
yell fire in a theater.
Exactly. And I think that also should be something that there should be a consequence
And if I yell fire in a
to.
theater, you don't get to pee on me because you think you're putting it out. Like all the basic human niceties.
Okay, fair. Don't do that. But now we kind of can form these social media bubbles where we don't hear divergent, different thoughts than our own. And I think
it's
that's
increasingly extremist because the more extreme you are, the higher your affinity usually is in the group.
And you get more attention.
Yeah,
and it goes back to that feeling of when you're doing something like leaking a news story, you get all of this positive attention. You become one of the strongest people of the group, the leaders of that group, and that feeds us. So every single group kind of moves a little bit more to wherever you were leaning every time. And because the person that gives the most radical of ideas gets that most attention, then other people become more radicalized to that feeling and we become divergent. We end up being these small different groups and we're shutting out more and more other people with different ideas.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is not just for a species, but for a culture, differing ideas, different thought bubbles become very important for the health of that group, for the survival of that group.
But also I think when you have that group, aberrant ideas get tamped down very quickly.
Yes.
It's like someone sneezed.
It's against the culture.
Yeah, it's like someone sneezed, therefore they are possessed, we must burn them. Those sorts of things are like everything is measured against a range of normalcy.
Yes.
And you can have brilliant ideas like Newton with the apple or Einstein with relativity theory, and people argue against you and you'll argue, and sometimes even only after your lifetime will these ideas become accepted or popular. But you also have somebody sneezed, therefore they are possessed, we must burn them, which gets stamped out really quickly. And we don't have that either. Now you find a group of people who believe that sneezes should result in people being burned, or people who don't believe in the pandemic but believe that 5G caused the pandemic they don't believe in.
Yes.
And these ideas aren't being
Yes.
suppressed by a more encompassing social community either.
Yeah, which is really damaging to us as a people and a culture. And so if you disagree with us or the podcast, you can totally put it down
Yes.
there. We will listen and read that, just because I think that it's important, and I think we need to do that. And that's the thing, is that you end up with these companies that, because everyone is very similar to other people, they completely forget, they become kind of blind to differing ideas. And so our diversity is actually our strength.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, Mark Ruffalo, the Incredible Hulk from the Avengers, is doing this one-day Instagram shutdown.
One
which,
day.
Yeah, that's the
One
pushback on
day.
it.
Like,
But-
really? How strong is your conviction? I'm just going to say it. How strong is your conviction? And I think that it does stand for something, and I think it does at least bring people to talk about it. We're discussing it now. So I think that there's something there. But one day, like, it's not even a week. You
Well,
can
the
only
biggest
do one day.
advertisers said they weren't going to advertise on Facebook anymore because of their lack of civilized policy.
Yeah,
but
but do
Facebook's like,
that.
we're fine. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We're fine.
And let's say the advertisers usually come back. Like, it's not... Like,
But
we
even so, they
grab
have
our
so many
pitchforks for a
micro-tar-
small time, and then we lose our oomph, our cardio
Yeah.
to be able to keep on running, and we stop, we put down the pitchforks, and we go back to the same thing. Like,
Well, it's not just even that. It's like for every $1 million ad, they have 10 million $1 ads. Like, that's the
Right.
whole promise of Facebook and Google, is
Right.
to micro-campaign, micro-target it. So, yeah. So I am going to try, though, with Instagram, I think, Georgia.
Okay.
And I think I'm not going to get the new Oculus. As much as I was waiting for it and wanting it, I'm
So
not going to
hard.
get it.
I'm not going to be. I also have the Oculus, and that's a difficulty for me. But we're not going to, like, because we've already bought it.
Yeah.
We're not forced into
Not
signing
yet.
in with Facebook. But in I think it's 2022, we are going to be forced to, and we won't, and we'll play
Yeah.
whatever we can with it, and then not
Yeah.
without. But I don't think that most people are in that kind of a position that they could even do that. And I
No,
think that it's
I totally get it. Yeah.
yeah.
So, is there any takeaway, though, Georgia? If people are feeling stressed or threatened, they feel like they might be losing TikTok, or they feel like they can no longer accept using Facebook properties given how Facebook is acting in the world, is there anything that I mean me, is there anything we can do?
Right. I think that one is you can talk about it with other people. I think that you can send letters and discuss it with those people that are in government that are surrounding you, and let people know your opinion. At least make a little tiny stamp that's dealing with it. If you feel very strongly also, yeah, we pay with our pocketbooks, and that's the only thing that companies care. They only care when it actually hits their bottom line. Remember, their tribe is all about protecting their tribe.
Yeah.
So by not supporting the companies or the regulatory figures that are stopping this, that means a big deal. If it actually changes their power, their control, their money, their, again, bottom line, then they're going to change policy because of that. And if not, we have to actually make sure that people are educated and understand what's happening and why. And unfortunately, our society right now is not the most media savvy. And I understand that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So tell us what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Does this matter to you? Do you think it's a non-issue? I think a lot of people say well, I'm not doing anything illegal, so what does it
Or
really
there is
matter?
no privacy on the internet anyway.
Yeah,
It's
you're
just
already giving away all your
yeah.
information, so what is one more company? I think that that's a dangerous, slippery slope, and that the more that you give away, the easier it becomes. And the reason that, 1984 right now is the, biggest selling book, or was the greatest selling book, is because of, now we are putting all of these cameras willingly inside of our homes. The government didn't even have to do it, and I think it's important what people are using, and to make sure that those privacy policies that no one ever reads, I do, they're horribly scary, and you still don't understand them even if you do read them. I think that it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you think. And because this is a brand new podcast, please do subscribe in whatever your favorite podcast client is. Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, all the literally every cast.
Every cast.
Subscribe to it in every cast. And then if you are using Apple Podcasts, just scroll down to the bottom, leave a review, leave a rating. It really helps people find out about new shows. And if you are listening to this on Nebula, because this podcast is launching as part of Nebula Podcasts, you not only will get a sponsor ad-free version of the show, because eventually we will have sponsors on the show,
Hopefully.
but you'll get a
There's
bonus
enough
segment.
subscribers.
You'll get a bonus segment where every week Georgia and I will share what we think were the coolest things of the week. So,
and I'll read the reviews. I'll read them out on the show if
you
know
like
they're
them.
cool or funny or silly or
Okay.
horrifically
If they're
bad. Please don't make them horrifically bad. It's a news show. My ego's on the line.
If people do want to reach out to you though, because we intend to do questions and answers as well. So if you have questions about the stuff we talked about, if we got anything wrong, if there's follow-up we need to
Right.
do,
Grab
please
your
let us know.
pitchfork.
Where can they find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter. It's at Georgia_Dow.
And you also have anxiety-videos.com?
Anxiety-videos.com, which if you're dealing with anxiety or depression or relationship issues, there's a whole bunch of videos that you can get your therapy kind of by a video instead of going to see someone like me.
IRL.
What about you, Rene? You don't have any underscores.
No, yeah, I managed to be, well, we'll talk about that in a different show. But you can find, I'm, like I say, either the most consistent or the most boring person in tech because I'm just Rene Ritchie. Twitter.com/Rene Ritchie and YouTube.com/Rene Ritchie. As long as you remember and can spell my name, you'll be able to find me. Thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone on Nebula, stay tuned because we're going to talk about the coolest things that we found this week right now.